Are you considering a career change? And if so, have you ever thought about working for a cause you truly believe in? If this sounds like you, you're going to love today's monthly motivation interview with Kelly Fleming. Kelly is the executive director of Habitat for Humanity in Central Arkansas. Kelly left a high-paying job to find personal fulfillment in the nonprofit sector. Kelly's story will inspire you to not be so afraid to take that leap of faith, and is a powerful reminder that salary isn't always everything. So come back and join me for episode 74, where we'll talk about it all right here on the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast.
Are you a strong, independent woman who's passionate about her career? Then this podcast is perfect for you. Based on her book, The Career Woman's Secret Playbook, career coach Dr. Dawn Hamby shares the kind of insider secrets you can only know if you've hired, fired, and promoted employees over the past 30 years.
Ladies, I'm on a mission to help busy women just like you create a career and life you love without sacrificing your work-life balance to get it. Come join me as we inspire and motivate each other only as women can, and have lots of fun along the way.
With Dr. Dawn's tools, strategies, and action steps, you can unleash your personal and professional power in a whole new way. Here's today's episode.
All right, ladies, as you heard in the intro, I am thrilled to be welcoming not only a woman who I admire, but who I personally know is not only the epitome of women helping other women, but she's also making an amazing impact in her community. So, Kelly, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here on the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Dawn. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we are definitely thrilled to have you here. And ladies, as you heard in the intro, Kelly Fleming is working in the nonprofit sector, specifically as the executive director of Habitat for Humanity. So we're going to begin, as always, in our monthly motivation series in asking her to share her story about how she got here. So Kelly, tell us a little bit more about your interest in nonprofit and how you came to be the executive director of Habitat for Humanity here in Central Arkansas.
So how long do we have, Dawn? I moved to Little Rock in 86, so almost 40 years ago, and I had a freshly minted MBA from SMU, but I was new to Little Rock, and I thought there were two organizations I wanted to work for. Both were nonprofits. One was Arkansas Repertory Theater, and one was Heifer International. Long story short, I have since worked for both and enjoyed both of those experiences. But before that all came to pass, I took other jobs. My first real job in Little Rock was I wrote for and edited for Arkansas Business, a business journal, which was a great introduction to the players in Little Rock. You know, who were the big businesses? Who were the big men and women? Then I went into real estate and did that for 5 years. And I loved that work, but I was a single mom and it was kind of hard to schedule. This was before DocuSign and automated door
Right.
locks, so I would literally pluck my daughter up out of the bed or the bathtub and say, we got to go get this contract signed, or we have to go show this house. So on my 40th birthday, I gave myself a real gift. I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico for a month. I rented a little house. I don't even know now how I found this house because this was pre-Airbnb. But I went to a writer's workshop for a couple of weeks at Georgia O'Keeffe's Ghost Ranch. It's an incredible experience. And my daughter went to a camp out there at the same time. But one of our final exercises at that writer's camp was have a written conversation with yourself. And I was kind of struggling at real estate and the challenges as a single mom. So I wrote this conversation with myself. And when I was done, it was clear to me, I was telling myself it was time to make a change. And Dawn, I took a 60% pay cut to go to work for the rep as its marketing director. But
Wow.
I loved that job. I loved theater. Uh, Drew, my daughter, grew up in the box office there, and now she's a theater buff. But that was my entree to nonprofit. And it was a leap of faith. I mean, that kind of pay cut was difficult, yet it was worth it to me. And you just make adjustments, you figure it out, you know. Like I remember I cut my cable. I didn't have cable for a while, and then I ended up dating this man who had to have ESPN. So for Christmas, I got cable back in the house so he could watch ESPN. But no,
Oh my gosh.
that was terrific and crazy when you look back and see how one thing led to the next. You go, oh yeah, I get that. That all makes sense. But at the time, when you're trying to look forward, you think, oh my gosh, where's this going to go? How's this going to work? How am I going to get there? You know, the person whose job I took at the rep was moving on to Heifer, and
Mm.
we got to be friends. He helped me out some in my early months at the rep, and a few years later he called me and he said, I know you always wanted to work here, and there's a job that I think you'd be perfect for. You need to apply. So that's how the Heifer thing happened. And I did take another hiatus in my career. I took 2 years out and went to the Clinton School of Public Service here in Little Rock and got my master's in public service, a 2-year program. And my capstone project, my last year there, is what led me to the art center. I was doing work for another nonprofit in the capstone, and their board president worked at the art center and said, hey, we've got a job, I think you should. So it's just, you never know how it's going
Exactly.
to evolve. But yeah, I just have always had that bent. Corporate
Mhm.
doesn't feel right to me,
Mhm.
and I've always been willing to balance the money for the feel good work. And yeah, it's just, so that's how the whole nonprofit thing started.
Well, and I love that part of your story also, Kelly, because as busy career women, especially in the position you were in, right, as a single mom, where
Mhm.
you didn't have the technology advances that we have today. So you're
Yeah.
literally plucking your child, as you said, out of the bathtub to go
Mhm.
get something signed. So
Yes.
I love that you looking back. I think this is a great lesson for our listeners out there. Looking back, you realize that you just had this calling, kind of
Mhm.
this ability to see that if you were passionate and happy with your work, it was going to be more important in the long run, your own personal fulfillment, even
Yeah.
though it meant a huge pay cut. And if you
Mhm.
are a single mom and you're out there listening, absolutely a 60% pay cut would be tough if you were married and had a second income coming
Yeah.
in, much less, perhaps really having to shoulder all the
Yeah.
responsibilities, even
Yeah.
if you did have, financial support elsewhere. So I
Mhm.
think that's an incredible, I love that story about faith and resilience. And
Thank
also,
you.
I think the overarching message there, too, ladies, those of you that are maybe at a crossroads, just listening to the fact that she was willing to bet on herself. On this podcast, I'm always saying betting on yourself is never wrong when you really look at things from all angles. Because notice Kelly's like thinking things through. She gave herself this gift of time and reflection at that beautiful place where both she and her daughter got to have this hiatus, right? So she didn't rush into anything. We're not saying, oh, just leave your corporate job with no plan for anything
Right.
else, right? We're talking about if you find yourself just really with this passion and this calling to do something else, and you give yourself the space and permission to do it, but then do it in a smart way, like no cable. Sorry, guy who needs ESPN. Um, We're gonna have to watch that at your house until I can afford to have that. I love that
Right.
too. That's just great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you mentioned, other wonderful organizations, Arkansas
Mm,
Repertory Theater,
yeah,
you talked about Heifer International.
yes.
So in terms of the fact that obviously you've had a great career in terms of fundraising efforts, leadership roles. What
Mhm.
advice could you give to women who are maybe a little hesitant to step into those roles? Because notice, ladies, these roles kind of came to her, but not because she was sitting there doing nothing. She obviously had built relationships. She got to know people through her work. So then she's on their minds when a position comes open. That's the power of networking. You guys hear me talk all the time about being part of a networking organization, whether it's Business Networking International or BNI. In fact, Kelly and I are both members of the same chapter. You also have heard me talk about the Chamber of Commerce. So, wherever you're listening, we're lucky enough to now have international listeners. You really need to be thinking about plugging into your community, building those relationships, because, right, Kelly, a couple of these positions were situations where people are like, Kelly, have you thought about this? This would be
Mhm.
perfect for you. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about any advice you would give to women who may be at this crossroads and thinking about stepping into that leadership role. And then I'm going to ask you some specific questions about fundraising and your role as executive director.
Sure. It's it can be daunting, and I love your expression, bet on yourself. Um, I think many of us struggle with imposter syndrome. I
Oh,
know I
yes.
have.
Oh, yes.
And
We have whole episodes about that.
I just think I'm not qualified to be here. I don't deserve to be here. Um, but believing in yourself and trusting you're prepared, and continuing to do homework and learn um, and grow yourself. We're never done growing, and there's always something new to learn. Mentors, people you can trust for good advice, or they're great sounding boards. I think sometimes in a leadership role we need to be careful who we vent to, or express our fears and anxieties to.
Oh,
In
absolutely.
Yeah, in my situation, I don't want my board of directors to hear me, but I can go hang out with a trusted girlfriend and tell
Yes.
her all about it. Yeah, yeah,
That's right. There's the difference between venting, ladies, to your girlfriends over a glass of wine. We all need that some days, right?
yes, yes,
Versus venting, at work.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
speaking of your role, what motivated you to take on this role as executive director for Habitat? And then I want to ask you those questions about a little bit more about fundraising at the Art Center.
Sure, sure. I'd been at the art center for 7 or so years. Um, we were we had already had great success in a very large capital campaign. I was about to turn 60. I was 59, and I thought, I have one good move left in me. You don't want to go somewhere and stay a year or two. So at 59, I thought, I probably have one good move left where I could make a difference and end my career on a high note. And I started looking around, and one day this job description popped up in my feed, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're describing me. It said that they were looking for someone with fundraising experience, marketing experience, retail experience, a plus. I'd done that. Real estate experience, a plus. I'd done that. I was like, oh my gosh. And the education requirements matched. So I just thought, what the heck? And the more I visited with them, the more I realized it's where I was supposed to be. Yeah,
I
and in
love
fact, I
that.
took a pay cut for this job too, Dawn. But
You
that's
guys, she
okay.
keeps taking these pay cuts, right?
Yeah, yeah, but look, I'm so happy.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and ladies, we know that's true. We know that's
Mhm,
true. If you love what you do, it's just gonna
mhm.
spill over so often into so many other areas of your life. Now,
Yeah,
we're not telling you to just, like, get rid of the ambition and the career goals you have,
Right,
perhaps of meeting
right,
financial
right.
goals in your life.
Yeah,
But don't let money be the driving force. It really can affect. I know I've got
yeah,
clients all the time that love the paycheck but are literally miserable. And if you are miserable at your job, it's there's just
mhm.
no way you're not going to take that out on perhaps your poor children or
Yeah.
your friends or your family,
Yeah,
right? That kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So anyway,
I had always thought that before I retired, I would love to either lead a small nonprofit or sit on the other side of the table and give money away instead of having raised it, like work at a
yes,
where you
like a
gave the
foundation,
money.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
and so I feel like God just put this in my newsfeed that day and said, "Here you go."
I love
Um,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. There's so many great things about that part of your story as well. And notice, ladies, we were both joking about imposter syndrome. It is such a thing. There's all
Mhm,
kinds of biological reasons why women as a gender tend to doubt themselves a little bit more. I mean, there's real research behind that. And we've talked about that in other episodes where a woman really does believe, even in 2025, that she needs 8 or 9 of the qualifications if, say, there's a list of 10 in a job description to even apply. And our male counterparts out there will apply with just 3 or 4 of the qualifications because they almost have this innate belief that
mhm,
their skill set is such where they can figure that out.
mhm.
So we definitely want the ladies listening to really think about that. Now, in Kelly's case, this was one where she was like, oh my goodness, this was literally written for me. Everything
Yeah,
in here is for me. So it's an
mhm,
exciting thing when something like that happens. And like she said, she feels like it was divinely inspired. What were the odds that this would just show up? I love stories like that in your
mhm,
feed. But,
mhm.
even though this job was written perfectly for you and you didn't have to worry about imposter syndrome in that case, you still had to be willing again to take that leap of faith and be like,
Mhm.
okay, I've done a pay cut before. I can
Yeah,
do it again because this is how I want to end my career. I just
yeah,
love that. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Okay, another part that I think might intimidate folks, especially in nonprofit, notice that Kelly said she'd love the opportunity to actually be maybe part of a foundation where you're giving money away instead of having to raise it. What a
Mhm,
wonderful opportunity. That's where money, in my humble opinion, can be such a wonderful thing. The ability to help people, to be able to write a check and really help people in causes that
mhm,
you believe in.
mhm.
So often we talk about, the power of money maybe to in a more negative light. I did
Right.
mention don't let money be the driving force, but money is
Mhm,
important, not just to pay your bills and give yourself financial security, but then
mhm,
ultimately to be able to help people. So, speaking
mhm,
about fundraising, Kelly, what advice would you give to women who, perhaps like you, have a calling to do nonprofit work, but
mhm,
they just are not sure about the confidence? Perhaps it's not always
mhm,
confidence, but the ability to raise money, the
mhm,
fundraising aspect. And as you guys know from the intro, Kelly was a big reason why when she was at the Arkansas Arts Center, right? 128 million. Kelly, that's no small feat.
mhm,
So, to be part of something like that can be
mhm,
really intimidating for people.
mhm.
So, what
Yeah.
advice would you give there?
I when I was at the Clinton school, so many of my classmates wanted to be out in the field doing the work. That's where their heart was. They thought that's what nonprofit work looked like. Get out there, get your hands dirty, do the work. And I was the oldest person in my class by far. I could have been their mother, all of their mothers. And I said, y'all, there is no better way to support an organization you care about or whose mission you believe in than raising money for it. Like that work is as important, if not more important, than getting out in the field and getting your hands dirty. So I always felt like as a fundraiser, I was doing that important work, helping fund these missions that I believed in. So I think first of all, I want people to understand the value of the fundraising work. Secondly, I would say that is one of those fields where it's not so much about formal education as it is about who you are as a person, your relationship building skills, your communication skills. That's what it takes to be a really successful fundraiser. And some
Right.
people just have that, it's just innate, their ability to connect with people and share a story.
Yeah.
That's what makes, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think storytelling, I think you're really right, especially when it comes to nonprofit. People can get behind
Mhm.
what the organization is doing to help the community and help other people, right? But
Yeah.
notice she talked about relationship building. Even if you're not a natural, and I know Kelly personally, so you guys, she's definitely a natural, okay? But please don't get discouraged that if you don't have that ability. In fact, I'm working with a wonderful organization right now and helping this organization teach some of their employees how to be a little bit more natural when it comes to networking. So think about this, ladies. We know that confidence sometimes comes from the experience of having done it. So don't hold yourself back when you hear Kelly talk about storytelling, building those relationships and, helping people see it from that point of view. It's powerful. But it is also a skill set that if you're just not used to going out there, putting yourself out there and talking about your organization in that way, do what she did. Attend classes, go to a program, be part of your community, start joining those networking organizations, or start by just attending a networking event. And right, Kelly, sometimes that seems really intimidating to folks, especially if they are introverted. But let
Mhm.
me tell you something. Extroverts do have some advantages here, yes, because, you guys probably know from this podcast, I tend to be a little extroverted. However, yes, I find it easier to go up and introduce myself to people. But
Mhm.
I also have to be aware that when I'm trying to get to know someone, I have to be interested in what they're sharing. I can't just be so excited about what they're saying next that I jump in all the time. So sometimes the introverts might have the advantage in
Mhm.
building those relationships
Mhm.
because they are invested in getting to know that other person, letting them talk. So they
Yes,
probably listen more than they talk. So
yes.
folks, don't get intimidated by that aspect.
Mhm.
Sometimes, again, that confidence comes from having done it. So
Mhm.
just take those small steps and getting more comfortable. Because, right, Kelly, building those relationships, that is such an important skill set. And I think it's often overlooked.
It is absolutely critical to the work of a fundraiser, nonprofit world, all of it. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Kelly, tell us now a little bit more about Habitat for Humanity. I believe most of our listeners have probably heard of this organization. This is an amazing organization, been around for a long time. But
Mm,
tell us a little bit more because we know, you and I know, it's more than just building houses.
yeah.
But because I've been blessed with the opportunity to actually see some of those dedications, could you tell us a little bit more about Habitat, their mission, and how you guys are actually helping the community in terms of building those houses and what that sweat equity means, all of that.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity, Dawn.
Absolutely.
Um, Always happy to talk about habitat. So our mission is, I'll recite it for you, but it says it all. Putting God's love into action. We bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And I love every aspect of that mission. I
Love it.
love that we're faith
Yeah.
based.
Love
I
everything.
love that we work to bring people together. We rely on volunteers as part of our business model, corporations, churches, friends, the homeowners and families. So we love bringing people together and we do build homes and therefore build communities and hope for these families. Low to moderate income housing. I like to say we're three businesses under one roof. We are a construction company, we are a mortgage company. We do 0% mortgages for our qualified home buyers. We qualify them just like a mortgage company would, but our criteria are a little different. Um, and then we are a major retail operation with our Restore, soon to be Restores, plural. Um, and that's a whole business to itself. And really, we are a social services agency as well because we work so closely with our home buyers, helping them improve their credit scores, get ready for home ownership, setting them up for success, teaching them about insurance, estate planning, home maintenance, those kinds of things. It's pretty all encompassing.
It really is, and if you've never been to one of the dedications, you guys, it really is amazing because
Mhm.
Habitat, correct me if I'm wrong, right, Kelly? Habitat is definitely, has such a large, footprint because isn't it both national? Is it also international
Yes,
or just okay.
yes, it's
Tell us a
both.
little bit more about that and also,
Mhm.
what support systems you guys may actually have in place to, help homeowners be successful.
Sure, sure. And you mentioned in your previous question, sweat equity. So
Mm,
part of our model and why the program works is in lieu of a down payment, our home buyers perform what we call sweat equity or work on their own home or other habitat projects. So that's in lieu of a down payment. We do ask them to save money. We work with them to save money so they can pay their own closing costs. In terms of going forward, we'll help them. Our homeowners usually, often they're the first homeowner in their family
mm,
in generations. So they don't know what they don't know.
yeah, yeah.
You can shop homeowners insurance, you can shop that stuff. You can improve your credit score by doing XYZ. Um, we love to work with them like that. But yes, there are um, 1,000 or more affiliates in the United States, and then they're scattered all over the world. Habitat affiliates in the US tithe to the mothership, Habitat International, and all of those dollars go to fund the international work.
Wonderful.
Locally, we're funded. We have an interesting um, pie chart, revenue pie chart, if you will. And some of that is the homeowners making their mortgage payments every month. As those dollars come in,
Mhm.
we can use them to turn around and build additional houses.
Wonderful.
Unlike, I know, and we're doing all the traditional fundraising and special events and such. But one of the things that not every nonprofit is fortunate enough to have is an earned revenue stream, and that is our restores. So the restore, where we sell gently used furniture, appliances, building materials, etc., all donated, mostly all
Mhm,
donated.
mhm.
Um, generate for us, for example, last year it generated enough profit to fund the construction of 3.5 homes. So
Wow.
it's major dollars. It's a
Yeah.
major piece of our revenue pie. Yeah, so we give it a
Yeah.
lot of attention and love.
That was gonna be my next question because I know because of knowing you and you explained this to us in our networking groups that, the Restore is such an important part of the fundraising model for
Mhm.
Habitat and all the great work that you do. And you guys, until I had actually visited her first location, because now she has a new location, she'll tell us about that in just a minute. I was thinking furniture, I didn't even know that they didn't accept clothing, because I thought, "Oh, that it's, gently used items." So I didn't even bother to look at the list. So at first I was like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to bring my clothes here, but my gosh, this is a great place to bring furniture that I'm no longer using." And unlike other organizations, they will literally come pick that up for you. I don't
Mhm.
have a truck. It would
Right,
not fit
right.
in my car. So
Yeah.
it was great, especially for the women listening who may, not have a big vehicle or somebody strong enough to help them. Now, listen, I've been doing weightlifting and so does my daughter. I probably can lift more than some men nowadays, but I still don't want to throw my back out, right?
Yeah.
Trying to lift something. So it's amazing that you guys could actually schedule somebody to
Mhm.
come pick up these items. But it's
Yeah.
not just furniture, you guys. I was so surprised that when I walked in, how large these facilities are and that they had things like tile, things that you could actually use the building materials. When I hear
Yeah,
building materials, I don't
yeah,
really think about all the things I could use if I wanted to
yeah,
retile my bathroom or get new flooring or something along those lines.
yeah.
So Kelly, tell us a little bit more about the second location and a little bit more about donations because you guys may have items right now wherever you are listening
Mhm.
um, and could schedule a pickup and maybe even look at some of their fundraising events that you can find out more about on the website. Correct, Kelly?
Yes, thank you. And that's Habitat Central AR for Arkansas.org. But of course, all of these affiliates around the country, or most of them have restores. So wherever you are, seek out Habitat, seek out a restore. And some of the stores are different than ours, Dawn. Some do
Sure.
accept clothing.
Yeah.
We've chosen not to do that. We have such a strong goodwill presence here locally. We let them do the clothes.
That's right.
um, yeah, so they're different. We are allowed to carry a small percentage of new merchandise. So not only do we have some donated tile, but we sell some brand new tile. We sell some brand new LVP flooring, some brand new rugs on occasion, and paint. We always have um,
Right.
paint in the stores that is new. So
Mhm.
you never know what you'll find. It's a treasure hunt. Um, and we have known I've been here 5 years, and by the way, I started when COVID started,
Mm.
March 23rd of 2020.
Wow.
I know, and my first Friday on the job, Habitat International mandated that we close our restores, so I
Mhm.
had to lay off all of my restore
Oh,
staff, some of them I'd never even met yet, and
mm.
then a week later, I had to furlough some of my admin folks, so it was a rough start, but
Yes.
bring even back then, Habitat was helping us they were looked at the geographic area and the demographics and said, you need a store in West Little Rock. That needs to be your next location. So
Mhm.
this was years ago. And as the affiliate and the store stabilized after COVID and grew, we said, okay, now it's time we can look for this next location. It took us a long time. Uh, we were supposed to get our keys last August, so it's been a very long, typical construction project. But we're very excited now to be open, accepting donations in advance of a grand opening in
Mhm.
April, we hope. We're located in West Little Rock, exactly where Habitat thought we should have been.
Correct.
And it's a brand new space. From tragedy comes good things. Sometimes this shopping center was destroyed by our tornado a
Yes.
couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and the developers have used insurance money to build this shopping center back. So it's a fresh, clean, brand new space, about 10,000 square feet, and we're filling it up fast.
I love that so much. I mean, because that ties in even, I mean, with Habitat's mission, doesn't it, about
Mhm.
recycling, repurposing,
Yes,
sustainability. And so to be able to create the location that they always advise you on if you were going to open a second, and for it
yes.
to be in a place that was so decimated by the
Mhm,
tornado, and the fact that insurance could help rebuild this part of our
mhm.
community that,
Yeah,
suffered such hardship. So I
yes.
love that
The
so much.
neighborhood surrounding it,
Oh,
was yeah, and
absolutely.
all of those
Absolutely.
homes are are
Yes.
are being built back, and so it's
Right.
wonderful to be a part of that resurgence, that
I
rebirth
love that.
there.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely, out of something horrible, right, can
yeah,
sometimes be a fresh start.
right.
Let's now shift a little bit to the important lessons in terms of leadership. Notice that Kelly mentioned, my goodness, her job just happened to start March 23rd. In Arkansas, March 20th, I'll never forget this, Kelly, because March 20th is the birthday of my best girlfriend.
Uh-huh,
We've been friends for, I'll date myself, over 40 years.
uh-huh.
And so her birthday is coming up, but I'll never forget that everything closed on her birthday because we had an entire conversation about
Yes,
that. And so here she starts her position as executive director and has to let go some staff that she hadn't even met. So, Kelly,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit, especially since this podcast, although we have some wonderful male listeners, we continue to grow male listeners. Thank
Yeah.
you for your support in supporting women and sometimes the unique challenges we face. So, Kelly, tell us a little bit about the leadership lessons you've learned, whether it's through Habitat or your previous positions, and in particular, what advice you could give to women when they're facing tough challenges and how you have overcome them.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, Gosh, I have so many things I'd like to say to that, Dawn.
Oh,
First,
absolutely.
um, first when I got here, and that was such a horrible time.
Yes.
Um, as we, I thought my first job is to stabilize this
Mhm.
organization
Yeah.
and then grow it. Um, I think, but I realize now that that's a pattern. It's a rinse and repeat. Stabilize and grow. Growth creates some chaos, sometimes some challenges. Stabilize and then grow again. Stabilize and grow. Stabilize and grow. That's one thing. For a long time, I had on our whiteboard in our meeting room, keep the main thing. Because
Right.
when
Right.
all of this stuff is whirling around, and especially you're new in a position, and I was like, where do I focus? What needs my attention most? I kept coming back to what's the main thing. The main
Mhm.
thing is building homes and taking care of our home buyers. That's what we're here to do. Um, there are I was watching The Voice last night. I have to tell you this, and Kelsey Ballerini. I mean, first of all, she's so beautiful. It makes me furious. But and how can she be that tall and skinny, Dawn, and these
It's
long,
not
long limbs?
it's not fair. I
No,
know.
it's
I
not.
know.
But she's more than beautiful. She's smart, and she rattled this off last night, and I went, "Oh my gosh, I'm writing that down." She said there were 4 things she thought you needed for success, and she was primarily speaking to women. Um, Talent,
Mhm.
work ethic,
Love it.
kindness, and audacity.
Love that
I
audacity. Yes,
know.
because on this podcast, we talk all the time, Kelly, about taking bold moves, right?
Yes,
Having
yes,
that ability to, again, bet on yourself and
yes,
take that leap of faith. I
yeah.
love that. Thank you for
I did
sharing those 4 things.
I know. So now I'm gonna go back to them time and again, but that's a lot of that is advice I would give to leaders or new leaders. You do have
Yes.
to be a bit audacious, and part of your role is to dream big,
Mhm. Dream big.
brainstorm, think
Mhm.
about what the future can be, and then plot your path there. And then the kindness thing is so important.
Yes.
Um, I know people who have left jobs because of the
Mhm.
work
Mhm.
environment or the
Mhm.
boss. And first and foremost, if you're going to be successful, you have to have a strong team around you, and you want those team members to stay and contribute, and finding the right people. I lost my first hire here was a young man who was my director of finance, and he just moved out of state and
Mm.
took a fantastic job. Um, but when we were looking for his replacement, I said, "I'm not looking for a resume. I'm looking for a person." You
Right.
know, and
Right.
I mean, of course, they have to have some experience or background, but that I wanted somebody that would fit in with this team and had that kindness factor about
Yes.
them. Yeah,
And
yeah.
don't you find sometimes, Kelly, that women, as a whole, just speaking in generalities here, I know I discuss this in my book. I have a whole chapter on building your brand and
Mhm.
understanding that kindness does not mean that people will always confuse that with weakness. And
Right.
I think women leaders, especially, have this misconception that you have to be tough in a way that doesn't feel organic to them. Um, you do have to be tough in leadership. You have to make tough decisions, but
Mm,
you also need to be authentic to yourself and have that fulfillment in the way that you treat people. And Kelly and I are very aligned in that way. You know, kindness is something that's so important to me as well. And I remember when I first started off in teaching, back in the day, I would have some of these master teachers who were just trying to help me. And they would tell me that I smiled too much and that I needed to make sure that the students didn't run all over me because I was so happy and just so excited and et cetera, et cetera. And I understood what they meant.
mhm,
But I also knew that I could command a classroom with that kindness because the students are going to test me like an employee might test the boss or another colleague might test your position. And kindness does not mean it's weakness if
right.
you follow through, if you do what you say you're going to do. So, for example, I'm 5'1 3/4" on a good day. I always joke about that. And people at first, when they first met me, they were kind of surprised that I was teaching high school, and much less that they could walk past my classroom and you could hear a pin drop, even though, again, I was all smiley and happy, et cetera, et cetera. But it was because the students knew that
Mhm,
I loved them and loved what I got to do, but if you didn't follow my rules, and one of them was not to interrupt me or to interrupt another student when they were speaking, you
mhm,
had to raise your hand because I wanted you to have the floor. I wanted people to value what you said. So, as smiling, as happy as I was, if you got to my classroom late, if you didn't have your supplies, if you didn't do this, that, and the other, I always praise them for what they did well, but I held them accountable. So
mhm.
you can do all of that as a leader, ladies,
Yeah.
without having to change your personality. I mean, I think Kelly has smiled even more than I have, and it doesn't mean she's not a fab. She is well respected, right?
Well,
You can have that kindness and that enthusiasm. Call it passion, and
mhm.
people will follow you if they see that you are doing the right thing.
No,
So yes.
I lost my dad a few months ago,
Yes,
and, he was 94, and one he had so many great sayings, but one in fact, I may share this at B&I tomorrow. Um, he used to always say, "Equal parts love and discipline. Equal parts love and discipline."
that's
And
awesome.
he said, "Kelly, you tend to err on the side of love." And he was talking about when I was raising my daughter, but
Yes.
I have realized that same mantra applies to leadership. Equal parts love and discipline.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and it's worked well for me. So when I do have to discipline, when I do have to stand firm on a
Right,
decision or make a
right.
decision, um, I think people understand I'm doing it from having the organization's best interest at heart, or your child's best interest at heart, whatever the case may be. But yeah,
Exactly. Oh,
yeah,
I absolutely. I mean, one of the hardest parts about being a leader is letting people go. And because I completely relate to what your dad was saying, I definitely lean more on the love side. But when
yeah,
you lead with love for your people and the organization, and also knowing that the organization does have to come first, we all have a job to do. And so, just depending on how you speak to your staff and how you lead and lead by example, I have not had one instance where I have had to fire someone or let them go where it's been this horrific, dramatic thing because I gave them so many opportunities and support along the way. And the way I would always handle it was something along the lines of wanting them to be happy and seeing that they were just miserable at their job and it just was not a good fit for them. And I
mhm,
remember one time HR asking me, this is before I started my consulting business, but I always had human resources in the room with me if folks had questions because I always try to do it in a way where we could extend that last paycheck and any
mhm,
questions they might have had about their insurance or retirement and give them
mhm,
a letter of recommendation because oftentimes I could give you a letter of recommendation because there were probably some amazing things you could do well. It just was not
mhm.
serving our organization
Right,
well.
right.
So I never refused to give someone a letter of recommendation, and even again people that I let go. But HR
Mhm,
literally asked me one time after I had to let someone go. Um, if I could teach how to do that to other supervisors, because the employee stood up, hugged me, and thanked me for the way I handled it. And it was a very tricky kind of situation, that particular situation. So, yes,
Those.
please lead with kindness, folks. It does work. And the staff and the important work that you do, they see who does all the work. They really see what's going on behind the scenes. And so, just persevere and realize that you will get recognized, and that people will appreciate your kindness. It just goes such a long way.
And the recognition is
Oh,
such
yeah.
an important, recognizing your people and calling them out, giving them a shout out. And
Yes.
we have a little trophy here in the office, Dawn, that's about this tall. You hold it like this, and we pass that trophy around, and say, "You did this, yay!" you know,
I love it.
it's just an office joke now. This little bitty trophy, yeah.
I love that so much. No, that works, Kelly. It really
Mhm.
does. I mean, your staff gets excited. Who does not want that verbal
Yeah,
recognition, right? That affirmation that you
yeah,
matter. I
yeah,
tell organizations all the time that I work with that the best leaders do these three things. They help people feel heard, seen, and valued. Because we know people don't leave jobs. They oftentimes will leave managers or coworkers, because
yeah,
if things have been let to, like,
yeah,
gotten to a point where the management is not doing anything about a difficult
right,
coworker and not holding them accountable, when
yeah.
people get to that point, they will leave. So if you're in an organization like Kelly's and she's your boss and she is making sure you get that trophy, and we're talking about how fabulous you are even for just a minute or two, that's a wonderful way to continue to lead. Okay, Kelly, as we start to wrap up, I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you some more questions,
Okay.
specifically about leadership. A lot of our listeners are women who are aspiring to step into those leadership roles. And so I believe that in today's podcast, just the conversations we've had, you have definitely given us a lot of specific advice about how to be a good leader. With all of that we've already discussed, can you think of anything else that perhaps we haven't covered, as far as maybe the best advice you could give in terms of the abilities a woman needs to have if she's really interested in taking on a new role in her organization when it comes to leadership? What would be your best advice there, outside of the four things we discussed about
Okay.
earlier?
Kelsey Ballerini's tip.
Yes, yes.
Maybe you need to interview her next, Dawn.
Okay, I'm gonna put that down as my
Okay,
list.
work on that. Um, gosh, there are several things. I'll tell you, one of the biggest compliments I received from someone that worked for me here was they said I had grit.
Grit,
And
yes.
as southern as I am and as smiley or whatever as I
Mhm,
am, she
mhm.
saw that in me, and it meant so much to me that I'd never thought of myself that way. Sometimes people see these things in us and that we don't see ourselves. But I think
Absolutely.
a leader has to have some grit, and you can be as soft or as feminine as you want on the outside, but on the inside, you need to balance that with some, like,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
going to do this. I can do this, um, and just persevere through some of the sticky stuff, the yucky stuff. Um, be determined
Mhm.
and don't give up, and like we talked earlier about dreaming big, there are a
Yes.
couple of projects here at Habitat that I would consider legacy projects. They're so big, but you take baby steps, and you start chipping away at it. Patience too, things
Mhm.
don't always happen overnight, but if you keep going,
Yes,
yeah.
I
And
love that.
yeah, you just have to have some faith too. And,
Mhm.
like I said, when I moved here, there were 2 places I wanted to work. It was 12 years before I worked at the first one of those. You know, but it happens when you look back, you think, "Oh, that all happened the way it was supposed to." Um,
Exactly, like stepping stones to get you to
yeah,
where you needed to be, and
yeah,
when you're in the middle of it, right, Kelly, sometimes it's hard to,
mhm,
hold on to that faith.
yeah, yeah, and grit helps, "By
Yes.
God, I'm gonna do I'm gonna
You are so right, and you guys,
yeah,
I don't know why sometimes femininity has not sometimes been associated with grit. I believe in it so much. I have a whole chapter about it in my book. I have a course called Uncovering Your Grit and Becoming Unstoppable.
oh,
And personally, having supervised so many men and women both, I find that, especially if you're looking at women who, either have children or furry children, right? A dog
yeah,
mom, a cat mom. But I find that women are. The successful women are very gritty.
mhm,
They manage to do so many things and still
mhm,
get to work on time, accomplish great things at work, still manage to get those babies in the bathtub. And if you think, ladies, you are not capable of getting the same compliment Kelly got, that people recognized her grit and tenacity, you can do it. You might be exhausted. You might need a little extra coffee if you're watching us on YouTube. Kelly and I are both enjoying our coffee, but
yeah,
hey, listen, do what it takes and
yeah,
talk about leading by example, right, Kelly? When people see, because I've done it, I could be in a dress and high heels, and as short as I am, there were plenty of times where I may have to get literally on a step stool to reach something on the top shelf and fix that one thing before, let's say, we had corporate come visit us and I wanted the place to look amazing. I'm not going to wait for folks to help me on that. I'm going to get it done,
yeah,
because when you are in leadership, the buck stops with you. And
yeah,
so notice Kelly talked about recognizing that. I really believe that's why I've had the privilege of having so many staff tell me I was one of the best bosses they ever had, because I believed in always recognizing my staff, knowing I couldn't do my job if they weren't doing theirs. So
mhm,
people really respect that, and they respect people who are willing to work just as hard, get down on the floor to get, to get things done if they have to unplug something. There've been times my staff would walk into my office and I would literally be under the desk trying to fix something instead of asking IT to do it, because I just didn't have time. And I would be really proud of
yeah,
myself when I
yeah,
would figure it out,
yeah.
that kind of thing. Oh,
One expression I use a lot, Dawn, is, "I deputize you." I deputize
love
you.
that.
You have the authority. You go figure that out. You go do that. I don't have to be a part of every
Exactly.
minute decision.
No, because
Yeah.
micromanagement kills the
Mhm.
spirit of your staff,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You want them to feel empowered, and
Yeah.
knowing Kelly the way I do, I know, because 'cause I've had the privilege of working with some of her staff, and I know she empowers them, and they are grateful for that. If you are in a situation, ladies, where you don't have a boss as lovely as Kelly,
Oh my
remember, have those tough conversations.
mhm.
Silence is concession, and
Yeah.
sometimes a boss just doesn't know how they're coming across. So
Mhm.
always presume the best in people. And if you're not getting anywhere, ask for help. Talk to a colleague, talk to human resources. Just
Mhm.
remember, you always have choices. And in Kelly's situation, when she first described her story at the very beginning, remember, sometimes it was leaving the job because her fulfillment really was elsewhere. And that's
Mhm.
okay too.
Yeah.
Kelly, as we wrap up here these last couple of minutes, tell us future plans for Habitat, anything else that you want our listeners to know about Habitat or the Restore, or even some
Sure.
upcoming events that folks could check out on your website.
Sure. Well, the new store will open soon, and I do want shoppers and donors to the store to understand how important that is to our being able to deliver on our mission. So we're oh so grateful for shoppers and donors. We are really looking forward. One of our next big projects I alluded to was we have several lots, contiguous lots that face a park in North Little Rock. There's 5 of them, and we've decided we're not going to put just 5 homes there. We're going to do some kind of really cool planned development and hopefully put 10 or so homes there with access
Wonderful.
to this park. Very exciting. We
Yes.
have some property in Southwest Little Rock that has a new trail that's being built from our county through another to another. The Southwest Trail cuts through our property, so that's a real opportunity for us to do something special there. These are the legacy projects I'm
Yes.
referring to. Meanwhile, we're going to keep putting families in homes, one family at a time, and helping them succeed. And it does feel so good. Um, I was at our UAMS, one of our local hospitals, a couple weeks ago, and ran into one of our future home buyers there working hard on the job. And
Oh, it's
she has,
wonderful.
I know she has a second job. She works so hard and is very deserving, and she'll close on her house in a couple of weeks. So we just keep the main thing, keep doing that and looking
Yes.
to help as many families as we can. We know, Dawn, that safe, affordable home ownership leads not only to better economic outcomes, which it does, it creates generational wealth, but it also leads to better health outcomes, better social outcomes,
Right.
education outcomes, civic outcomes. So we're really proud of the work we do.
That's wonderful. I'm so proud of the work you do as well. And I think today's interview is just so important because, we've had several wonderful guests on the podcast from different walks of life, some that are, in the corporate world. And we hadn't had a guest yet really representing nonprofit in the way that you guys do, especially kind of the unique structure of Habitat and how not just the home ownership, but how you guys really are kind of three companies in one. And I don't know if folks always really understood that and the connection with the Restore. Now,
Mhm.
Kelly, if folks have any questions, because I always like to include in the links, you guys remember on our podcast, I will always include links for our guests. So whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, whether you have an email you'd like to share or website information, that will all be in the links in the podcast notes. And then on YouTube, you guys just click on more
Right.
in that description box. So tell people how they can find out more about you, how they can reach you if they have any questions or want to donate.
Sure. Well, and I can give you all of those addresses, but our main website is habitatcentralar.org. We are on the affiliate itself is on Facebook,
Mhm.
LinkedIn. The Restores are a separate account on Facebook, but that main website will get you to pages that talk about all of the mission work and the Restores, how to apply for a house, etc. I'm happy to give my email, which is kellyf@habitatcentralar.org. And before we go, Dawn, I have to add very quickly a
Yes,
shout
ma'am.
out to my sweet husband. He was a fundraiser too. That's how we met. And I am so blessed. He comes around the Restore. He knows everybody by name. He gives them all Christmas gifts and is so supportive of my work. When we go out in public, he's a dear and he just says, I'm Kelly's, I'm Mr. Kelly Fleming. And he's so supportive. I could not do what I do without him. I drag him to dedications and you name it. So I wanted to give him a shout out before we got off today.
Absolutely. And you guys, I know her husband personally. He is absolutely amazing. And we say this on the podcast all the time, right, ladies, that we know we can do it without the men, but man, it sure is sweeter when we have their support. And I think it is especially wonderful when we have men in our lives that are so proud of us that they
Mhm.
want to, sometimes kicking and screaming, perhaps, like she said, she may drag him a time or two, but I love that he introduces himself
Yeah.
as, as Mr. Kelly Fleming.
Yeah.
That's so great, Kelly.
Thank you so much for this
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Absolutely. It was just a delight to have you on the show. You guys, if you have any questions, remember all those links will be in those show notes below and also in the description box when this airs on YouTube. And folks, remember, If you have questions about any of our guests, the monthly motivation series is one that I put out each and every month because we're highlighting women like Kelly who are doing amazing work for your community. So I'm always open to suggestions on future guests. So please reach out to us at Dr. Dawn at drdawnshoptalk.com. And as we wrap up today's episodes, remember our motto here at Dr. Dawn Shop Talk to remind us that we always have choices in how we handle things, right? We can't control everything. Kelly talked about her first day on the job being during COVID. March 23rd, 2020 was not something anybody could have controlled, but we always have control over how we face things, the way we handle things. So don't forget our motto here at Shop Talk, and it's this: if you're not having a fantastic day, you've got the power to make it one. Thanks, ladies, for listening, and all of the gentlemen out there supporting these wonderful women. We love you, and we'll see you next time right here on the Career Woman Secret Playbook podcast. I know our episode is over, but this is just the beginning. If you're ready to take action but don't know where to start, just head over to drdawnshoptalk.com for lots of free resources, ways to work together, and for even more. Subscribe to the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk YouTube channel. Remember, ladies, you don't have to take this journey alone. I've got you covered. Till next time.